Danse, my name is Lisa Muswagon, and welcome to today's episode. I first want to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we are on. We are on the Treaty 1 territory, home of the Anishinaabeg, Métis, Cree, Oji-Cree, and Soto.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We Stand Together is a project where we hear the stories of residential school survivors so that the atrocities that took place never happen again, and an opportunity for newcomers to hear these stories and bridge the communities of Indigenous and newcomers. We have our guest today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Mabel Horton, Tikawin, Métis Nishawayasihk Cree.
Fantastic. So why don't you share your story with us, please?
I'm 73 years old. I'm from, like I said in my introduction, Nisichawayasihk Cree Nation, which is Nelson House, for those that don't know the Indigenous name. And I was asked to speak to the new people that are coming to our country so they can experience our country as it is and know what had happened in the past. And not just for themselves, but for mainly our people. That's why we're doing this project. And I think it's important to know different experiences of the survivors, although I don't like the word survivor myself for the residential schools, because we're still surviving. And we've lost many already. I'll start from my day school, which was in Nelson House, in Nisichawayasihk Cree Nation. And that's been also in part of the compensation packages for day school. So that was mine for the Roman Catholic part of things. So I was there till I was there till grade 6 at the time, because there was no high schools there in my community. And then I went to Guy Hill Residential School near the PA, OCN. OCN is short for Oji-Cree Cree Nation. And so I was there for a year, and then I came down to Winnipeg to I understand it's one of two maybe, but one for sure of the schools in the city in Winnipeg that are residential schools. And they were for children, like I said, from grade 8 to 12. And so we were in our teens, but not unlike the schools. The first one I went to was Guy Hill, and I don't know how many of the new people hear about it. They must have heard about it because of the attention we got when the Pope came to Canada this summer and all the stuff that followed. I could make lots of comments on that, but I won't for this occasion. And to recognize that especially the isolated schools and with the little ones, I mean, they were young as 3, 4 years old that came to these schools and away from their parents. Like, you don't realize this till you're a parent yourself. And I left when I was 10, and it didn't really hit me till my daughter turned 10. I thought, oh my goodness, this is how old she was. This is how old I was when I left. That was our day school in RC Point, it's called. There's 3 areas of my community, so that was one of them. And then I was sent to Guy Hill, I mentioned, for a year, and then to Winnipeg from grade 8 to 12. And it was right in the heart of the city. Assiniboine Residential School on Academy Road. For those that are living in Winnipeg, will know it was a nice place by the river. And that was quite a few years we were there. I mean, the whole, I think it was 58 to 71, something like that. But I was there from 62 to 67. There's lots of people from the north. There's lots of people, some from the northwest of Manitoba, and lots from southern, northwestern Ontario came here. And there were about, I think the number, I'm getting all my numbers mixed up, but I believe 679 of us went through that school. And towards the end, it turned to be like a boarding school. So the students could go to the city schools, which I'm sure some of my colleagues had mentioned from their experience. So yeah, so that was good. Like for me, my parents really wanted us to be educated so we could have good jobs and all that stuff. And they were always encouraging us and always visited us where we were. Because we weren't, well, we left in September, some of us went home in December, and of course summertime. So they made a point of coming to see us. In Guy Hill, I had one brother there, he's now deceased. And in Winnipeg, I had 2 siblings. And we only could see each other on Sundays in a parlor, sitting nice and pretty, you know, with our knees crossed and everything. No hugs, you know, just visiting each other. Trying to not giggle too much, but we're just sitting in chairs. It was awkward, but at least I knew they were in that area. And so my older brother, Fred, he just passed this August 1st. He was 80. And he had many friends, including the Fontaines, the one that led our group, the Nisichawayasihk Residential School Legacy Group that I belong to. At the moment, I'm one of the co-presidents. And we're doing a memorial. You probably heard about that one. And it was advertised and very publicized this Orange Shirt Day. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. But anyway, it was quite an honor to work with the late Theodore Fontaine. And just 3 weeks ago, we named the park after him at the back of the our school grounds, basically. I guess it was called Wellington Park, which I didn't know at the time or in the future. But yeah, so that was a great honor. I'm just trying to think of what more stuff you want me to add to that.
I guess maybe when we're looking at the history of residential schools, for newcomers coming in, what is kind of a piece of information or something about that experience that you want them to know and be aware of?
For newcomers, I'm a nurse background, and I've been retired now. It'll be 10 years next month, which is amazing, because I'm still working on committees and to do with health and my background. And it's good for the communities to know, and I've heard anecdotally that our professionals had come from overseas to Canada, especially to First Nation communities, or working with First Nation communities, like say in Winnipeg. And it doesn't take them long to get that attitude, meaning racist attitude, and maybe 3 months, and they're in that groove saying, oh yeah, that, you know, the drunken people from Main Street type of thing. So it's unfortunate, and I know a team of my colleagues that are also doctors and nurses. They are always talking, and I go to many international conferences where we are now addressing racism, especially in the health field. And I think it's important for the newcomers to know our history, where we had to go to school. You know, they hear horrible stories of kids being forced to go to school and taken away. My dad never went to school, and he passed when he was 89. But I guess when the time came for him to go, he was all dressed in a little suit. I could just see him now. And then they were going to the plane, and he took off. And he just stayed there, didn't come back. So that's why he didn't go to residential school. But my mother never went either, and she's passed on too. But anyway, yeah, for the newcomers to know that it's not just them having a hard time to come to our country, and as we welcome them, like we did in the past with the first settlers. I think it's important to know. And also, I think it's important to know, and I've been recommending this book that people should read, and it's a must. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass, and it's a beautiful book. And the one that captured me was the chapter on the language itself. I speak fluently my language, and Robin Wall, the author, was talking about, and she's a professor in near Harvard there. Anyway, she was saying, from the word go, from the get-go, when we first speak our languages, it's the total different way of looking at things, because we believe in inanimate and animate objects, and which is verb, and it's all verb action words, whereas the English language is nouns, and like a lake would be a lake, you know, but for us it would be a living thing. Mm-hmm. So just that difference, I thought, of course, you know, that's the way it's been. And that's why I think we always clash with the language. And we make sure our elders, and when I help, I call myself a helper, and Oji-Cree, and to try and explain these things to non-Indigenous peoples, because I work a lot with the research community. Mm-hmm. So that's, we try and help that way. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And for newcomers or individuals like myself, what are some ways that we can be better allies to the Indigenous community and better neighbors?
You could live on a reserve for a week or a month just to get to know that what we go through. I really like going home as much as I can, which is Nisichawayasihk Cree Nation from near Thompson, just to realize how lucky we are, if you want to call it lucky, in the cities or the towns, with running water, sidewalks, and sand when you're not skidding all over the place or trying to avoid the dogs running around, type of thing. It's good to be there and to experience it, because people can talk from their mansions in Ottawa or wherever and not understand. So I think it's important that they do come, and even with us. Because of the intergenerational trauma and all the suicides that we have in the north or wherever, not even in the north, even the non-Indigenous generation with all the issues that are happening, it's good to be aware of that and to try and help. So the newcomers that come don't take it for granted that this is the way it is. I can say a few things about Vancouver area because that's where my son lives and the family, and I feel I'm not in my country because it's just so many other foreigners there, and then they don't even smile at you and to see how lovely it is to be in this beautiful country and speaking their own language, whereas we're losing ours. I'm going, damn it, like we could be a bit better than that. Or people to understand that we had lost our languages. We weren't supposed to speak our language to begin with. And so, but I was one of the lucky ones. So yeah, there's so many things we can talk about in that, but yeah.
So what does, I guess to explain to our newcomers, what does reconciliation mean to you?
To me, reconciliation, or to them, is to reconcile as peoples, and that we're not any different actually. They're escaping something, and then we're here, we're trying to also escape a few things, all the trauma that we had faced. And I think just to work together and try and, it sounds sweet and lovely, but it's hard work to try and understand each other, and especially with people bringing their own customs, and then we don't want to be a melting pot and be all the same. I see the difference, and I appreciate the difference, the foods, the languages, and the beliefs that people have in spirituality. But I think just to understand each other and be aware of each other, that and we travel, like they say, the wampum belt, we're traveling across and try and help each other that way. Yeah, and I think to begin with the younger ones, but they also would have conflict once they're in the country, because they're leaving their old traditions and adopting new ones, and there's peer pressure, and we could go on.
Yeah.
Sometimes, our newcomers, they see what we're going through, but I guess they don't understand what healing is. Maybe we can explain that a little bit more to elaborate, coming from this whole process or this whole systematic. The whole system that was put on Indigenous people, how can you explain what healing looks like?
Well, we're going through healing, that's for sure, all of us. And I know last year when they found the little ones, the 215, everyone's devastated in the world, not just us. But I think that's, again, that word, because that's an English term again, the people that had gone to residential school felt it most. And then felt it hard to this day, and it'll keep going because it's so sad to have seen all these little ones not go anywhere, not go home. And now even just the process of even finding them, trying to trace where the DNA samples and where their relatives are, and it's really, really sad. But healing for the people that come to our land, to understand us, like we said, it's been generations and generations of settlers and being colonized, and again, not only us, but all the other Indigenous peoples in the world. Because at the moment, like I was saying, I helping with research mainly, and we meet the other Indigenous peoples, like the Maori and the people from Australia, and so on. And it's wonderful that when we get together we know what we're talking about, we feel it, we experienced it, and we're trying to help as well. And we're getting more people educated in our, well, let's say educated in the academia. But some of our elders have said, yes, children, they call us grandchildren, and go learn about the white man's way, all the research and all the education, but always come back to your people and help your people. And I think that's important, because I think now people are starting to realize, oh yeah, we're not so silly and not scientific after all. We are very scientific as a peoples, starting from astronomy and our mythologies and legends and how we had to hunt and conserve nature and use all the parts of the animal. And yeah, there's lots to know about us.
It's just a different approach to understanding the world.
Exactly, yeah. And again, a lot of our people are going, again with the trauma that people have suffered and the addictions, and even now with all the meth and whatever's going on, just to kill that pain. There's a reason for that, and for people to understand that we're not just living on Main Street or wherever just for the fun of it, or in bus shelters. There's a reason for that, and there's lots of pain. So people have to understand that and not, shy away from helping each other.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories and having this conversation with us. I think it's so important and healthy to have these conversations so that we, at least for myself, a better understanding of the history and present, so that we can work together and, make a society where we all can succeed, right?
I know. Yeah, and like I said, the concept of the Main Street drunken Indian, I think it's still there, because people look out their windows and down the street. But just from my personal side of things, we can do it. Like I said, I'm a nurse, and my parents had encouraged us all to succeed in a field or other. So my brother was an engineer. My two sisters are social workers, and another electrician, and a teacher, and a professor, and lawyer, and myself as a nurse. And I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. And this Christmas we're going to go to the West and visit my son. So he's a neurologist. And I'm so proud to say that, because like I said, people were saying, oh, can you do it? Can these young ones do it? Of course we can. So and it's just wonderful to see. And our daughter, she's the other reverse of health. She's traditional medicine, a yoga instructor, tarot card reader. So they're all different, but they're all in the health field, and I'm so pleased with them.
Oh, you must be so proud.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to thank you and appreciate it in this cold day that we came.
Well, thank you again for coming. We are really grateful for your story. We just feel it's so important for our listeners. And once again, Egosane, and thank you.
Yeah, Egosane.
Thank you so much for watching. It's so important to hear these stories and understand the history and traumas there, but also the traumas and the effects that we're still seeing today. And that's why we will continue to have these conversations and to educate ourselves and build amazing communities together. So thank you.
Egosane.